There's a row of brand new Freightliner Cascadias lined up on a dealer lot off the interstate. Maybe 40 of them, chrome still wrapped in plastic, sleeper cabs that have never been slept in. And walking right past all of them, across the gravel, is a man in his 50s climbing into a 2016 Peterbilt with 900,000 miles on the odometer and a hood that's been repainted twice. He looked at the new trucks. He priced one out last winter. And then he went back to the shop, put a rebuilt engine in the old girl, and told the salesman he'd see him in a few years. Maybe. That man is not alone. He is the entire American trucking industry right now. The headline you clicked on says millions of truckers are refusing to drive new trucks in 2026. And I'll be straight with you because that's the deal on this channel. Nobody is picketing outside a Kenworth dealership. There's no petition, no walkout, no drivers throwing their keys on a counter in protest. If you were expecting torches, that's not what's happening. What's happening is quieter than that. And honestly, it's bigger than that. It's a buyer's strike. The largest one this industry has ever staged, and it's being carried out one skipped purchase at a time, in truck stop parking lots and small fleet offices all across the country by drivers who ran the numbers on a new truck and said the two shortest words in any market. Not me. And when I say millions, I mean it literally. There are roughly 3.5 million truck drivers in this country, and over 900,000 of them are independent owner-operators, men and women whose own name is on the loan, whose own signature is on the insurance, who feel every dollar of this personally. A company driver doesn't get a vote on what he drives, so this story belongs to the people who do, the ones holding the pen over the loan papers. And when that many of them quietly reach the same conclusion at the same time, without a meeting, without a leader, without a single press release, you should pay attention, because working people rarely agree on anything, and right now they agree on this. And you can see the whole strike in one number. The average Class 8 tractor on American highways is now 6.3 years old. That's the oldest the national fleet has been since 2013, according to ACT Research, which has tracked this industry for over 40 years. Fleets are not running old trucks because they love old trucks. Fleets are businesses. They run old trucks when the new truck stops making sense. And in 2026, for millions of the people who haul everything you own, the new truck has stopped making sense. By the time we're done here, you'll know exactly why. You'll know the price wall nobody talks about, the technology under the hood that drivers stopped trusting 15 years ago, and the government deadline arriving on January 1st that turned a slow walk into a stampede in the opposite direction. And stay for the twist, because the biggest truck ordering month in almost half a century just happened, and it proves the refusal better than any empty lot ever could. Before any of the numbers mean anything, you have to understand how a trucker thinks about his machine, because it is nothing like how you think about your car. A semi-truck is not a car. Nobody buys a Peterbilt for the ride. A truck is a machine for turning miles into money, and every driver who owns one lives and dies by a single number. Cost per mile. Every gallon of diesel, every tire, every insurance bill, every truck payment gets divided across the miles that truck runs, and whatever the freight pays above that number is what feeds the driver's family. When the truck earns more per mile than it costs per mile, the machine works. When it doesn't, the machine is just a very large way to go broke. So a new truck has to justify itself in that math. It has to earn its payment, and right now, a new truck can't. That's the whole story in one sentence. Everything else I'm about to show you is just the receipts. The first wall is the sticker, and it's taller than most people outside this industry can believe. A new Class 8 sleeper truck, the kind an over-the-road owner-operator actually lives in, now starts around $170,000. That's the starting point. When Overdrive magazine surveyed owner-operators about what they actually paid for late-model trucks, the average landed above $195,000, and plenty of them reported writing checks well north of $200,000. Specialized rigs, heavy-haul tractors, trucks with the big bunks and the big power, some of those crossed $300,000 for one truck, for one machine that goes to work every day in the rain and the salt. And it got worse in November of 2025, when new tariffs on imported truck content kicked in. Owner-operators pricing new trucks started seeing a line item on their quotes, sitting right there in black and white for $9,500 or more. Not negotiated, not optional. A surcharge stapled to the sticker before the conversation even starts. Now do what a trucker does. Turn that price into a payment. Finance $170,000 over 5 years at the rates independent operators actually get, and you're staring at a payment north of $3,000 a month before fuel, before insurance, before a single tire. That truck has to gross serious money every single week just to cover its own existence, and that's before the man driving it earns a dime. Which brings us to the second wall, because a $3,000 payment is survivable when freight pays, and freight does not pay. The trucking industry is now in the 4th year of a freight recession. Rates collapsed after the 2021 boom and never really got back up. Meanwhile, the cost of running a truck went the other direction. The American Transportation Research Institute, the outfit that does the definitive cost study every year, just reported that operating costs hit another all-time record. Tolls up over 13% in a single year. Repair and maintenance up almost 9%. Tires, insurance, everything climbing faster than inflation, while the rates paid to haul the freight crawled. Put real numbers on it. The total cost of running a truck now sits around $2.26 per mile when you count everything. The fuel, the payment, the tires, the insurance, and the driver's own pay. And a lot of freight out there on the spot market simply doesn't pay much above that, which means a man can drive 2,500 miles in a week, do everything right, deliver on time, and clear less than he'd make stocking shelves. Meanwhile, driver pay itself has now lagged behind inflation for 3 years running. The paycheck shrank in real terms while everything the paycheck has to cover got more expensive. The men in the middle got crushed. Roughly 88,000 carriers have exited the industry during this downturn. Small fleets sold off. Owner-operators handed trucks back to lenders, and the auction lanes filled up with barely used tractors from companies that didn't survive. By some counts, close to 9 out of 10 new owner-operators who jumped in during the boom didn't make it, and the ones still standing learned the lesson the hard way. In a market where every penny per mile matters, the last thing on earth you volunteer for is the biggest truck payment of your life. There's an old rule in farm country that covers this exact situation. You don't buy a new horse in a drought, and this is a drought going on 4 years. But here's the part the money numbers alone don't explain, because price and rates only tell you why drivers are hesitating. They don't tell you why drivers are refusing. For that, you have to go under the hood, and you have to go back about 20 years, because the distrust of new trucks wasn't born in 2026. It was earned, one breakdown at a time. In 2004, federal emissions rules brought exhaust gas recirculation to diesel engines, and mechanics watched engines start eating themselves with soot and heat. In 2007 came the diesel particulate filter, a device in the exhaust that traps soot and then burns it off in a process called a regen, which means a truck that periodically stops doing its job to clean its own tailpipe. In 2010 came diesel exhaust fluid, an entire second fluid system with its own tank, its own pump, its own sensors, and its own catalog of ways to fail. Every one of those systems was added for a reason. Cleaner air is not a conspiracy, and I'm not going to pretend it is. The diesel exhaust coming out of a modern stack is genuinely, dramatically cleaner than what came out of a 1999 truck, and that matters. But ask any driver what those systems cost him, and he won't quote you a dollar figure. He'll tell you about D-rates, about a sensor on the exhaust, a $50 part that decided it was unhappy on a Tuesday night in Wyoming and put a 500 horsepower truck into limp mode, crawling at 5 miles an hour on the shoulder with a load of someone else's freight in the box. He'll tell you about sitting in a dealership service lounge for 11 days waiting on a part, watching his payment, his insurance, and his family's grocery money burn while the truck sat in a bay. The trade magazines have been printing versions of that story for 15 years now, and they all rhyme. On a modern emissions truck, a check engine light isn't an inconvenience. It's a business closure with a countdown timer. and understand what downtime actually costs, because this is the math nobody outside the industry ever sees. A truck in a service bay bleeds you twice. First, the repair bill itself, which on a modern emissions system can run 5 figures once you're into the after-treatment hardware. Then the miles you didn't run while it sat there, which is the money that was supposed to pay for everything else. A week of downtime can erase a month of profit. 2 breakdowns in a bad quarter can erase a year. So when a driver evaluates a truck, he isn't asking how nice it drives. He's asking one question: will this machine be moving on Thursday? And the honest answer for a truck carrying the newest, most complex emission system ever bolted to a diesel engine is nobody knows yet. That's why, when Overdrive surveyed owner-operators about which generations of trucks they actually trust, the results told a 20-year story of men falling out of love with new iron. And it's why a very specific machine became the most wanted truck in America. Not the newest one, the 2019 to 2021 model years. Trucks new enough to have the good fuel economy, old enough to have the emissions bugs worked out, with 350,000 to 500,000 miles on engines that are built to run 1 million. That's the sweet spot, and every used truck dealer in the country knows it. A used 2020 or 2021 sleeper runs somewhere between $65,000 and $75,000 right now. Put that against $170,000 or $200,000 for new. The gap between a new truck and a proven used one is the widest it's been in over a decade. For the price of one new Cascadia, a man can buy a good used truck, insure it, stack a repair fund tall enough to survive anything, and still have money left over. The market did the math, and the market chose the old truck. So that's the strike. High prices, starved freight rates, and technology with a rap sheet. But I promised you the part that turned a slow walk into a stampede, and it arrives on January 1st, 2027. On that date, a new federal emissions rule takes effect for heavy-duty diesel engines, the strictest nitrogen oxide standard in the history of the program. It cuts allowable NOx by more than 80% compared to today's trucks. The engine makers, Cummins, PACCAR, Detroit Diesel, have spent billions engineering their way to compliance, and that bill lands where every bill in this industry lands, on the truck. The estimates for how much a 2027 compliant truck will cost over a 2026 truck run from $8,000 on the optimistic end to $25,000 on the realistic one. More hardware, more sensors, more complexity, bolted onto the exact category of technology drivers already trust the least in year 1, when every new emission system in history has had its worst reliability. Drivers know this pattern. They lived it in 2007 and they lived it in 2010. First-year emissions trucks are the tuition the industry pays, so year 3 trucks can work properly. And nobody wants to be the tuition. There's one more poison in the well, and it's uncertainty. All through 2025 and into this year, Washington kept sending mixed signals about whether the 2027 rule would soften, whether the extended warranty requirements would survive, whether the whole thing might get revised in the spring. The truck makers spent billions preparing for one version of the rule while the government floated another. So a buyer walking into a dealership today can't even get a straight answer about what a 2027 truck will cost, what its warranty will cover, or what it will be worth in 5 years. And a trucker will forgive a lot of things, but he will not sign a $200,000 loan against a question mark. When the future is a coin flip, the rational move is the truck you already know. Call it stubbornness if you want. A banker would call it underwriting. Now watch what the industry did with that knowledge, because this is the twist I promised, and it's my favorite number in this whole story. In February of 2026, Class 8 truck orders exploded. It was one of the 8 strongest ordering months ACT Research has ever recorded, out of 530 months of data. 44 years of records, and this past February is near the top. Wait, didn't I just spend 10 minutes telling you nobody's buying trucks? Look closer at what they bought. Those weren't orders for the future. Those were orders for 2026 build slots. Fleets weren't rushing toward the new technology. They were rushing to grab the last trucks built before it arrives. It's called a pre-buy, and it is the refusal written down in purchase orders. Thousands of companies looked at the 2027 truck, the newest, cleanest, most advanced machine the industry has ever offered, and stampeded to buy anything but that. When the customers of an entire industry pay a premium specifically to avoid your next product, that is not a market, that's a verdict. And the used market delivered the same verdict from the other direction. This summer, the average retail price of a used Class 8 truck climbed 5% in a single month and topped $61,000, at a time of year when prices normally go flat. 10-year-old trucks, million-mile trucks, trucks with sun-bleached hoods and worn seats are gaining value because a proven old machine is now worth more to a working man than an unproven new one. Your grandfather understood that instinctively. It took the truck market 50 years and a $200,000 sticker price to remember it. So who wins in all this? Because somebody always does. The manufacturers win on the pre-buy, selling out 2026 production at full price to buyers fleeing 2027. The dealers win twice, once on the sale and again in the service bays, because a national fleet that's 6.3 years old needs parts and wrenches like never before. And repair costs are climbing almost 9% a year. The big carriers win too, in a quieter way, because a mega fleet can absorb a $25,000 price bump across 5,000 trucks and negotiate factory warranties an independent will never see. The one truck owner-operator can't. Every round of this game raises the table stakes, and every round a few thousand more independents cash out and go drive for someone else. The regulations aim at the smokestack, but the buckshot lands on the little guy. It has every single time. Now, if you're sitting in this game yourself, or your son is, or the kid down the road who just got his authority is, here's what the numbers say to do, and none of it is complicated. First, if you've got a paid-off or nearly paid-off truck that runs, keep it. Maintenance on old iron feels expensive right up until you price its replacement. A $15,000 in-frame rebuild on a paid-off truck is a bargain against a $3,000 monthly payment for 7 years, and the strongest fleets in the country just proved it by running the oldest equipment in a decade. Second, if you have to buy the proven years. The used market's sweet spot exists for a reason. Let a mega fleet be the test pilot on first-year emissions technology. They can afford the tow bills. Third, never buy a truck the freight can't pay for. Know your cost per mile before you sign, not after. If the payment only works when rates are booming, you're not buying a truck. You're betting on the weather. And fourth, whatever you drive, own it on purpose. Because that's what this whole story is really about. Nothing else a working man can buy is built like a Class 8 truck. A good one will run 1,000,000 miles, take a rebuild in the middle, and put kids through school the whole way. The men refusing new trucks in 2026 are protecting the oldest deal in trucking, the one where a man, a machine, and a lot of miles add up to a living nobody can take away from him. The industry forgot that deal. The drivers didn't. So tell me in the comments, and be honest, because this crowd knows trucks better than any analyst I can quote. What's the oldest truck you ever ran, and what finally killed it? If you're still out there, what year is your tractor, and would you trade it for a 2027? And if you wrenched on the early DPF and DEF trucks, tell me your worst D-rate story, because those stories teach more than any statistic I can pull. I read every single one, and half my future videos come straight out of what you tell me down there. If this channel earns its keep with you, subscribe, because next time we're opening up the one everybody's been asking for. The 1,000,000-mile engines. Which diesels actually go the distance? Which ones quit at 400,000? And why the difference has almost nothing to do with the badge on the hood. That man in the 2016 Peterbilt pulled out of the dealer lot this morning with a rebuilt engine and no payment book in the glove box. The 40 new trucks are still sitting there under the plastic. Keep yours until the odometer gives up before the frame does. I'll see you in the next one.